Alright, the pin block has been rough fitted or mostly fitted. It's okay on the top here. You can see the little black marks. I've been going along taking those down and then retouching it. And then it's not quite finished here on the part that goes against the flange. This is the more important part. This is normally referred to as the plate flange. This is sort of the business end of the tuning pins come through these holes, and this is tasked with stopping all the pressure of the strings, which is amazing amount of pressure from pulling, the strings are pulling these two parts of the plate together from the tail and up here on the pin block. They're being pulled together. The flange is holding it back. This is called the nose. That goes to a part of the case, which is, all of this is to resist the strings pulling this thing together. So you have this sort of on the bottom in the case, and these metal bars, metal beams on the top. It's kind of like a bow and arrow, or not a bow and arrow at all. I don't know what it's like. But anyway, the strings are in between these two things, and it's all trying to keep this very stable and together. So it's very important how this fits onto the plate in the big picture so that it doesn't move at all. Even this is going to get screwed with 20 or so screws to the plate. But you want this to fit perfectly on there because screws do get loose over time. The wood expands and contracts, and mostly contracts, and the screws will get loose a little over time. And if this doesn't fit perfectly, you will get some distortion of the plate as the screws are loosening. That's a bit of the, it's a bit technical, bit of the minutia on this, but what I'm going to do today anyway is take this edge that fits, big picture it fits okay. This pin block doesn't rock back and forth. It doesn't do what they call teeter-tottering, which also would be what they call a fatal mistake. If this were, let's see if I can put this in here. If this were in here and you could move this and then move this like a teeter-totter, in other words, if it was hitting only in the middle and this were rocking back and forth, Mr. Tuner would be tuning on this side of the piano while this is moving, and these strings would be going out of tune, and he or she would be very disappointed because it would never stay in tune. And then it would have to come back to me and I'd have to do this over. So that's not happening. Big picture, this is fit fine. Now let's talk about the little picture. You might notice it fits, let's say here, it's obviously hitting the plate, and here, but not in the middle. Now what am I going to do about that? I am going to take some of this epoxy. This is the epoxy that I use. And then I'm going to put it right along this part of the pin block. Just put it right here. Then put some wax paper on the plate so I don't glue this block to the plate. That would be rude too, to glue the block to the plate. So then when I take it off tomorrow, I'm going to take off the wax paper, and you'll see what hopefully fits 100% perfectly to the flange. Now why is that important? It's important mostly because these are the tuning pin holes, and here's the tuning pin. It's getting pulled in this direction with, X amount of, gigantic amount of pressure. So if you can visualize the metal plate right here, the theory is, here's the metal, this plate is screwed to it. Let's say the tuning pin was right here. As it's getting pushed this way, it's not going to crack. There's nothing. This thing won't focus. It's going to be fine, but let's say you have here's a gap. So the plate is now, there's a slight gap there. When you drive the tuning pin into this hole right here, it starts to push the wood out in all these directions. And if there's a little gap right here, you got trouble. Either it may crack or it may relax sooner than it should. It's not being held. This part of the pin block is glued to the stretcher. This part's right up against the plate. It's keeping this wood forced in like this, keeping the tuning pins tight. So you don't want a gap. So what I'm going to do is fill this area right here with that epoxy, no gap. And actually with this model piano, if you look where these tuning pins are, it's not even that big of a deal, because I'm saying that cautiously because it is a big deal and you should do it anyway. But some pianos have tuning pins that are right here. And it really is, again, a fatal mistake if a tuning pin is here and there's a gap and you drive that tuning pin in and the wood either cracks or is weak here, that tuning pin's going to get loose sooner. But just because this model piano is made the way it is, you don't have any of those pins. Even down here, they come up. This is a screw hole, but these come a little closer. But it's not going to be a problem. But anyway, because it's going to take me 20 minutes to put the epoxy on here, set it up, take it apart tomorrow, and it's going to be quote unquote perfect. There really is no reason to not do it. Is that enough of a double negative? No reason to not do it. So back over this way. This glued down fine. This checks out all the way down here. Oh, that's not glued there. That's the soundboard sounds like that because it's a soundboard. So that's fine. I've checked underneath here and found absolutely nothing to worry about. I don't know if you can see it at all, but if the light works, I checked all the way around. It's not going to work. I don't have 3 hands. But you can check all the way around there. You can see and use a feeler gauge. And there's no spot where the soundboard is coming loose around the rim or the rest, whatever you want to call it. And the other thing is to check the screws, which are fine, and check the most important thing is to look at the rib to the soundboard joint. And even where it's been repaired, that was a good repair, and those are holding up just fine. So the soundboard is structurally fine now. So cosmetically, all I'm going to do is go ahead and put a shim in here. Come on, focus. I wonder if the lens is dirty on here. Anyway, I'm going to put a shim in here and a couple little shims in there, trim them down, and then scrape and revarnish the soundboard, clean up everything. I've looked at all the bridge pins are fine. So I'll run a file along the top of this, shine up the top of here, polish up. This is stuff called DAG. It's a graphite. I'll take a rag and polish that up a little. Scrape and varnish the board, and that'll be done. So we're getting there. Anyway, that's it for today.